At my own funeral, my wife stood at the podium and said, "He took his secrets to the grave." Then she looked straight at my brother and smiled. But what she didn't know was, I wasn't in that casket. Not really. Because 3 minutes later, I sat up, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Not all of them." And that's when she dropped to her knees. Because the truth? I knew everything. About her. About him. About the affair. And I planned my own death just to expose them both in front of everyone they cared about. What would make a man do that? Let me take you back. What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you are watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. My name is Martin Reyes, and for most of my life, people saw me as the solid one. Not brilliant, not flashy, just dependable. I was the guy who showed up early, stayed late, and never forgot your birthday. My job wasn't glamorous, but it paid well. Senior project manager at a mid-sized engineering firm. I knew how to build things, bridges, roads, systems. I knew how to fix broken processes. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't seem to learn, no matter how hard I tried, was how to fix people, especially not the ones I loved. Clarissa and I were together for 22 years, married for 19. We met at a 4th of July barbecue in my cousin's backyard. Her in a sundress with those sunglasses that made her look like a movie star, me holding a paper plate of ribs and corn I didn't even want. She smiled first. I remember that. Said something like, "You look like you've never been to a barbecue before." I said something awkward and forgettable in return. But she laughed, and that was enough. From the outside, we were solid. 2 cars, mortgage paid down, a daughter in college. We took pictures at weddings, hosted holiday dinners, even volunteered at church once a month. People called us balanced. They didn't see how Clarissa flinched when I walked into a room, how we barely touched anymore, how I'd learned to read her silences like other men read facial expressions. I thought it was just what long-term marriage became, a slow drift, not a break. But now I see the cracks were always there. I just kept spackling over them. Then there was Jonah, my younger brother by 6 years, though you wouldn't know it by looking at us. I aged hard, stress, work, worry. He aged soft, like someone who never really carried his own weight. Jonah was always charming, always smiling, always just barely getting by, yet somehow making it look good. He started 3 businesses in 10 years. All failed. He borrowed money from everyone except me, because he knew I'd make him sign something. That was our dynamic. I was the brain, he was the charisma. I handled reality, he handled charm. And Clarissa? She liked charm. I can't say exactly when things shifted. Maybe around year 13. Maybe earlier. All I know is, Jonah started coming around more. Not just for holidays. He'd stop by just to say hey. Sometimes on a weekday when I was still at work. I'd come home and find him on the back patio with a beer in hand and Clarissa laughing at something he said. Not polite laughter either. The kind that made her tilt her head back, like she forgot I existed. I noticed. Of course I noticed. But what do? Accuse your wife of cheating just because she laughs too hard at your brother's jokes? So I told myself stories. The kind good men tell when they don't want to see the truth. She's lonely. Jonah's just being Jonah. I'm being paranoid. I buried the questions. I turned them into work projects, into weekend chores, into middle-of-the-night pacing I blamed on caffeine. I buried them so deep I forgot where I put them. Until one day, Clarissa slipped. It was a Thursday evening. She was on the phone in the kitchen, back turned, chopping onions. I walked in just in time to hear her say, "Don't say that. You'll make me blush." When she turned and saw me, she jumped so hard the knife clattered onto the counter. I remember that moment in slow motion. Her face went white, then red, then blank. "Who was that?" I asked, already knowing. She forced a smile. "Just Janine. You know how she talks." But Janine was in Puerto Rico that week. I knew that because I'd helped her husband move a bookshelf on Monday, and she told me all about their trip. I didn't call her out. I didn't scream. I nodded, walked to the fridge, got a bottle of water, swallowed the lump in my throat, and told myself again, it's probably nothing. God, I wanted it to be nothing. But from that day on, I watched her differently. Every phone call, Every text she tilted away from me. Every mysterious Target run that took 2 hours and came back with one bag. I noticed how her phone never left her side, how she started dressing a little nicer, even when she said she had just errands, and how she laughed less when I was around, as if my presence sucked the joy right out of her. I hated myself for being suspicious, hated how I'd begun checking the call log on the home phone, how I'd scroll through her Instagram stories, looking for hints, hated the way my stomach dropped every time Jonah's name came up, because it always did. Jonah said this. Jonah's starting a new thing. Jonah's so good with people. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to demand the truth. But part of me was terrified she'd actually tell me. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Instead, I played the role. The good husband. The understanding brother. The man who didn't see what everyone else whispered about. Because yes, they whispered. I caught it in the way my sister, Lena, looked at me during Christmas dinner. The way my friend Kyle said, "You're a better man than me," when Clarissa and Jonah giggled over private jokes. The way my daughter, Ava, once asked, "Why does Uncle Jonah come over so much when you're not home?" There were signs. Sirens, really. But I ignored them all. Because to face it would mean admitting that I had built my life on a lie, and I wasn't ready to lose everything. Not yet. I thought if I just held on tighter, things would course correct. That Clarissa would remember what we had. That Jonah would stop crossing lines. That the world would make sense again. But that's not how betrayal works. It doesn't announce itself like a storm. It drips, slow and steady, until the floorboards rot, and the ceiling collapses, and you're left standing in the rubble, wondering how you didn't hear it coming. And when I finally heard it, when I finally saw it, it wasn't through some dramatic affair reveal or hotel receipt. It came through an old voice memo on a forgotten phone, a sound that would replay in my head for months. But that's chapter 2. It started with a drawer. Funny how something that simple, a stuck, squeaky drawer in the guest room, could change everything. I had gone in there looking for spare charger cables. Ava was home for spring break, and like every time she came back, half her stuff didn't work, or got lost, or just disappeared. I tugged the bottom drawer a little too hard, and it jammed on something solid wedged at the back. When I reached in, I pulled out an old iPhone, one of my hand-me-downs, an iPhone 8, scratched and dead as a brick. I almost tossed it into the donation pile, but something made me plug it in. Maybe curiosity, maybe fate. I don't know. All I know is that I charged it overnight, and the next morning, it blinked to life like some forgotten ghost finally stirred. It was mostly empty, factory reset, barely used. But there were 4 voice memos, each labeled by date. Each recorded during a week when I had been out of town for a client build in Seattle, 3 years ago, almost to the day. The first one was 36 seconds. It started with static, then a laugh, hers. Clarissa. Light, breathy, younger somehow. Then his voice. Jonah. Shoo, he might hear. Clarissa, he's 3,000 miles away, babe. Then a moan. I didn't listen to the rest. Not then. I couldn't. I just sat there in the guest room, phone in hand, heart pounding so loud it echoed in my skull. Everything slowed down, the air thickening around me like tar. I must have stared at the wall for 10 minutes straight. My fingers felt numb. It wasn't just the sounds, it was what they meant, what they confirmed. That every gut instinct I'd suppressed, every sleepless night I'd justified, every moment I'd chalked up to paranoia, was real. Not imagined. Not exaggerated. Real. My wife. My brother. In my house. The second memo was longer. 2 minutes. This time, it started with whispers. Jokes about me. About how I didn't notice a thing. About how I still thought Jonah was a loser. Jonah. You know he thinks I come over for you. Clarissa. Well, he's not wrong. Then more laughter. Kisses. Movement. Skin on skin. I stopped it. Turned the phone off. Slammed the drawer shut. I wanted to vomit. Or scream. Or drive somewhere far and never come back. But instead, I stood still. Heartbroken, yes, but also strangely clear-headed. Like something in me had finally snapped into focus. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't blind. I was betrayed. Fully. Deeply. And the worst part? They were never going to tell me. They had buried it and moved on, while I sat at dinner with them, laughed at their jokes, defended them to others, built a life on ashes. But here's the thing about betrayal. Once you see it, really see it, you can never unsee it again. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat in the living room, lights off, replaying everything in my mind like a twisted film reel. The way Clarissa had started locking her phone, even at home. The time Jonah bought her a necklace for her birthday, said it was from both of us, but I had never seen it before. The way she pulled her hand away from mine at church when she thought no one was looking. And then there was last Thanksgiving, when I had gotten up to grab more wine and returned to the sight of them. Her in the kitchen, Jonah too close behind her, hand on her lower back, whispering something into her ear. She jumped when she saw me, said he was just helping with the stuffing. I believed her. God help me, I believed her. But not anymore. Not after those voice memos. So I started recording. Not them myself. A new file, labeled Martin Journal 1. I spoke slowly, trying to keep my voice even. Clarissa and Jonah. Affair confirmed. Evidence. Voice memos, April 12th, April 14th, and April 15th year. I couldn't even say the year. My mouth stopped working. Instead, I breathed through my nose and kept going. I detailed every memory, every suspicion, every lie I'd swallowed like aspirin. I logged dates, times, reactions. Not for revenge, not yet, but for clarity. I needed a record. Something real, something mine. Proof that I wasn't crazy. And then, like a man possessed, I kept going. I started combing through photos, emails, text backups. I found a receipt, Jonah's credit card, for a hotel near the airport. Same night Clarissa had told me she was with her cousin for a girls' night. I found a picture from a barbecue at our house where Jonah was wearing the same watch Clarissa had told me she'd bought for me. A gift that never arrived. The lies were everywhere. Layered. Stacked. Woven into the fabric of my daily life. And still, I said nothing. Because I wasn't ready to explode. Not yet. No, I wanted precision. I wanted control. So I did what I was trained to do, build systems. Document patterns. Anticipate behavior. Over the next 3 months, I became someone else. Still me on the outside. Still Martin. Still dependable. Still quiet. But on the inside, I was tearing down every wall. Every false memory. Every blind assumption. I updated my will. Quietly. I called my lawyer and added a clause that would transfer my estate to Ava if anything ever happened to me, excluding both Clarissa and Jonah entirely. I added a failsafe to my email, one that would auto-send a zip file of all my recordings and findings to Ava's inbox and my lawyer's hard drive if I didn't log in for 72 hours. I backed up the voice memos. Then I transcribed them. Then I destroyed the original phone. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I stopped feeling sorry for myself. I started feeling something else. Not hate. Not quite. Something colder. Like resolve. Clarissa came home late one night, her lipstick smudged and blouse rumpled. Said she'd gone out with co-workers for happy hour. I kissed her cheek. I didn't want to waste my last year, or months, or weeks being pitted by people who had already betrayed me. If I was going to go, I wanted to go on my terms. And I wanted the truth to go with me. But not quietly. I began what I now call the setup phase. First, the will. My lawyer, Rebecca, smart, tough, loyal to a fault, helped me rewrite every clause. Clarissa would get nothing. Jonah? Also nothing. Everything would go to Ava. But that wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel it. So we included a posthumous message system. If I died, they'd each receive a video. Personalized. Scripted by me. Nothing too dramatic. Just the truth. With evidence. Next, the insurance. I bought a small secondary policy with a clause Clarissa wouldn't notice. One that tripled the payout if death occurred due to stress-related complications or marital infidelity involving the named beneficiary. It was a stretch, legally, but with the right evidence, it'd hold. Then, I made copies. Of everything. The voice memos. The transcripts. The hotel receipts. The fake invoices Jonah submitted to a company I helped him build. Turns out, he was siphoning funds. I kept it all on an encrypted drive stored in a safety deposit box under Ava's name. She didn't know about it yet. She would when the time came. The hardest part, though, was pretending. Pretending I didn't know. That I hadn't seen them brush fingers at family dinners. The video ended with me looking into the lens and saying, secrets are only powerful when they stay hidden. Mine don't. I uploaded it to a private cloud. Set it to release automatically on a chosen date if I didn't intervene. I left instructions with Rebecca to play it at the funeral. Not after. During. And yes, I planned my own funeral. Casket, church, seating chart. I chose the music. I picked the flowers. White lilies and one red rose. Symbolic. I even pre-wrote the obituary. I wanted it clean, polished, nothing that hinted at the war underneath. But the piece de resistance? I arranged to be resurrected. Not literally, but close. I hired a trusted mortician, a family friend, paid extra to delay the casket sealing. He owed me a favor. His son got through college because of a loan I never collected on. I told him the plan. Told him I might still be alive when this all went down. That I needed 1 hour. One chance to sit up at my own funeral. To stare Clarissa in the eyes and make her crumble. He agreed. Said it was insane. But he agreed. The day before everything was scheduled, I stood in my garage and looked around. 22 years of life stacked in labeled bins. Photos. Tools. Old birthday cards. One card from Jonah, yellowed with age, that read, "To the best brother anyone could ask for. I owe you everything." I almost cried. Not because I missed him, but because I finally let go of the version of him that never existed. Clarissa, too. The woman I married was a memory. The one I was leaving behind. Just a shell. Beautiful, yes. Charming, yes. But hollow. Dangerous in her dishonesty. The setup phase was complete. And now all I had to do was die. Or at least, make them believe I did. The thing about pretending to be dead is that you learn a lot about the living. How they dress for you. How they cry. Who doesn't show up. Who shows up too eagerly. But most of all, you learn how people rewrite the story of who you were. And in my case, no one rewrote it faster than my wife. The funeral was held on a Saturday morning in early April. Rain was in the forecast, but the sky stayed dry, clouds low, heavy like they were holding their breath. Fitting. The church was packed. I watched from a back corridor, out of view, heart steady. Not nervous. Not afraid. Just ready. Rebecca stood at the front, her face composed but eyes sharp. She was the only one in the room who knew I wasn't in that casket. Everyone else. They thought I had died from a sudden aneurysm 3 days prior. Quick. Tragic. Dignified. Clarissa wore black, of course. A wide-brimmed hat covered most of her face. But not her mouth. Not that smile. God, that smile. She stood at the podium, voice steady as she read from a folded piece of paper. Martin was a solid. Dependable. The kind of man who made you feel safe, even if he didn't always say much. He took care of things. Quietly. He loved our daughter. He loved the city. And yes, he took his secrets to the grave. She paused, looked up, straight at Jonah, and smiled. The kind of smile that said, "We got away with it." That's when the first sound came. A soft creak from the casket. People thought it was a trick of the acoustics. Old wood. Settling. But then the second creak came. Louder, unmistakable. Gasps. Someone in the front row stood. Rebecca nodded from her place by the AV table. And then, I sat up. Clarissa dropped her paper. There was a split second, just a flicker of time, when her brain tried to tell her it was a hallucination. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. Not all of them, I said. That was all. 3 words. And she collapsed to her knees like she'd been shot. Screams. Shouts. Chaos rippled through the room like a wave hitting a crowd at a concert. Jonah stood too fast, knocked over a chair. His mouth moved, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. Someone in the back pulled out a phone and started recording. And then the screen behind the altar flickered to life. My face. From the video I had filmed in my study. The one Rebecca had queued up. Clarissa. Jonah. If you're seeing this, then I guess the funeral's over. A nervous chuckle spread through the crowd. Some thought it was a prank. Others realized this was real. This was planned. I stayed seated in the open casket. Alive. Composed. Watching them fall apart. The video kept playing. You lied to me. You slept with each other. In my house. During my absence. While I paid the bills. While I raised our daughter. While I made excuses for both of you. And I let it go for too long. But not anymore. Clarissa tried to stand. Couldn't. Her legs were trembling too hard. Her hat had fallen, revealing her face, tear-streaked, stunned, ruined. Jonah? He was already halfway to the door when Rebecca cut him off. She handed him an envelope. Inside, copies of his fraudulent invoices. The paper trail from his fake consulting business. Enough to implicate him in tax fraud and breach of contract. "You might want to sit down," she said flatly. Then, my voice again from the screen. "To everyone else in this room, my daughter, my family, my colleagues, this isn't just about infidelity. It's about lies. The kind that eat at your soul when you pretend not to see them." I turned to look directly into the lens. I saw everything. I documented everything. And I chose this moment, not to shame them, though they've earned that, but to free myself. From the lie, from the silence, from being the good brother, the good husband, the fool. I stood slowly, climbed out of the casket, and walked to the front of the room. People parted like the Red Sea. Clarissa looked up at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. The man I was. The one who begged for scraps of affection, who ignored every red flag, who chose peace over truth. He was dead. I knelt down beside her. "Do you still think I didn't know?" I asked quiet. Her lips trembled. "Martin, I don't," I said. "There's nothing left to explain." She broke then. Not into sobs. Into silence. The worst kind. The kind that means the mask has fallen and there's no face left underneath. "Jonah?" He tried to speak. Started some half-assed apology. Something about confusion, about love, about how it just happened. I didn't look at him. I walked past him. My daughter, Ava, stood near the back, frozen, tears in her eyes, her mouth slightly open. She didn't know the full story. Not yet. But she would. And when she did, she'd know I told it first. I reached her, took her hand, and whispered, "You're the only one who never lied to me." She nodded. And together, we walked out of my funeral. The day after the funeral felt like walking through the eye of a storm. Calm on the surface, but I knew what was coming. The silence before the backlash. The numbness before the ache. It started with my phone vibrating nonstop. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. People who had been at the funeral. People who had heard about it. Some were furious. Others stunned. A few grateful. One message came from my aunt in Florida. "Martin, I don't know what to say. That was biblical." Another came from my old friend Kyle, blunt as ever. "I always thought your brother was a snake. I just didn't know he was that kind of snake." But what stuck with me most was Ava's silence. She didn't say much that day. Not when we got back to the house. Not while I made us lunch. Not even when I handed her the hard drive with everything. Every memo, every photo, every journal entry. She took it with both hands. Her eyes locked on mine. Then she said quietly, "How long have you known?" "Almost a year," I answered. She looked away, jaw clenched. I asked her last year. She said I was imagining things. She was protecting herself, I said, though the words tasted like poison. "No," Ava said, her voice sharper now. She was protecting him. That hit me harder than any confession ever could. Because it was true. Clarissa had lied not just to preserve our marriage, but to protect Jonah. To preserve him, even at the cost of our daughter's trust. Our family. The fallout didn't stop there. Within 48 hours, Clarissa's face was all over Facebook. Someone had uploaded a clip from the funeral, just a few seconds, but it was enough. My resurrection. Her crumpling. Jonah's pale face in the background. Over 30,000 views by Monday. I didn't post it. I didn't need to. People talk. People always talk. Her sister called me, furious. Sad-eyed, humiliated Clarissa in front of the entire community. "She's your wife, Martin," she snapped. "No," I said. "She's not." The divorce papers had already been served. Rebecca made sure they were waiting for Clarissa the moment she got home from the funeral. Standard protocol, immediate effect. I'd already changed the locks on the house. Clarissa moved in with her sister that night. Jonah, meanwhile, was in damage control mode. Tried to meet with me. Sent texts I didn't answer. Emails I didn't read. He even left a voicemail, voice trembling, saying, "I never meant for it to go this far. I thought you were happy or numb. I didn't think you'd ever find out." That was the most honest thing he'd said in years. He didn't think I'd find out. He counted on it. But truth has a way of rotting through floorboards. No matter how thick the lies, the termites get in. And when the video of his financial fraud surfaced, a quiet tip to the right investor, his entire business imploded. His partner pulled out. His funding vanished. I didn't even have to lift a finger. Just a few forwarded documents. Let the house of cards collapse on its own. The best revenge isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's letting people ruin themselves with their own lies and giving them nothing to lean on when they fall. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Because it did. Every minute of it. There's no thrill in watching the woman you once loved cry herself to sleep in your guest room. Just like there's no satisfaction in seeing your brother spiral into legal trouble. You want to feel righteous, victorious. Instead, you feel empty. Ava, bless her, was the only thing that kept me grounded. She didn't say much those first few days. She just stayed, brought me tea, sat beside me on the couch. Sometimes she'd ask questions, soft ones. When did you stop loving her? Do you think Uncle Jonah ever felt guilty? I didn't have good answers. All I could say was, I think I stopped loving them both the moment I realized they saw me as disposable. She nodded at that. Slowly, like something inside her clicked into place. Fallout doesn't end in a week. Or a month. It keeps spreading, like a stain. Friends picked sides. Church members gossiped. A neighbor offered me a casserole and said she always knew Clarissa was too pretty to be loyal. I didn't know whether to laugh or throw the damn casserole in the trash. Then came the letter. Clarissa, in her own handwriting. 3 pages. She left it on the porch. It started with apologies. Then came the justifications. I was lonely. You were distant. Jonah was there. And then came the part that stopped me cold. He made me feel seen, Martin. You always made me feel safe. But Jonah made me feel alive. God, what a line. What a coward's line. She had safety, loyalty, a home. And she threw it away because she was chasing some fleeting high. And now, that high was gone. And she wanted to rewrite the ending. But I wasn't going to let her. I folded the letter, put it in the fire pit, watched it burn. Jonah didn't write me anything. But he sent money. A wire transfer, $5,000 with no note. As if money could cover betrayal. I sent it back. It's strange what silence sounds like when it's finally earned. For months, my life had been noise, muffled cries behind closed doors, whispers at dinner tables, lies packaged as laughter. But now, for the first time in a long time, I could hear myself think. And what I heard wasn't rage or grief. It was something quieter, something heavier. Relief. The kind that comes when you finally put down a weight you didn't know you'd been carrying for years. Clarissa was gone. Officially. The divorce was final. She didn't contest anything, didn't try to claim the house, or the accounts, or even the ring. I think part of her knew that fighting me would mean exposing more. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to see my face again. I didn't miss her. What I missed was the idea of her. The woman I thought I married. The partner I thought I'd grow old with. The person who, for a while, made life feel less lonely. That woman died long before my fake funeral. I'd just never buried her until now. Jonah never reached out again. He moved 2 states away. Word was he started bartending at a high-end restaurant. He went from entrepreneur to hourly wage with a name tag. And from what I heard, he drank more than he served. Some said I should forgive him. That brothers fight. That family breaks, then heals. But what they didn't understand is, this wasn't a fight. He took what he wanted, destroyed what he didn't, and expected me to clean it up. And I had. For decades. Forgiveness is for mistakes. This was a choice. And I was done cleaning up after other people's choices. Ava stayed with me for 2 months after the funeral. We barely spoke of her mother, but I could see it on her face. Every time she walked past the wedding photos I hadn't taken down yet. Every time she saw my hand shake when I held a coffee mug too long. She was grieving too. Not just the betrayal, but the disillusionment. One night, I found her sitting in the garage, looking through old boxes. She held a photo of all 3 of us, Clarissa, me, Ava, at her 6th grade graduation. Clarissa had her arm around my waist. Jonah, in the background, blurry and smiling. I used to think we were one of the lucky families, she said. We weren't unlucky, I told her. We were just unfinished. She looked at me. Do you think Mom ever loved you? I didn't answer for a long time. Then I said, maybe, once, but not enough to stop lying. That night, she hugged me before bed, harder than usual. It was the first time since the funeral that I cried. Not because I was broken, but because I realized, finally, that I wasn't. The cancer? That's still part of my story. The treatment's ongoing. Some days are harder than others. But the prognosis isn't as grim as it was. I caught a break there, early enough to fight it, late enough to give me the clarity I needed. If I hadn't gotten sick, I probably wouldn't have found the strength to uncover the truth. Life's funny that way. I started journaling again. Real journaling. Not just evidence collection. Thoughts, fears, gratitudes. I wrote this line one morning. They betrayed me, yes. But they also freed me. Because once someone shows you what they're capable of, you never have to wonder again. I haven't seen Clarissa since the funeral. But one afternoon, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo of the three of us again. This time from our wedding day. Clarissa had circled our faces in red pen. On the back, she had written one sentence. I loved you once. That part was real. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I put it in a drawer, not to reread, not to hold on to, just to remind myself, some truths come late. And that's okay. Closure isn't always clean. Sometimes, it's just the quiet after the storm. I walk more now. I eat slower. I listen to music I'd forgotten I loved. I even took up gardening, something Clarissa always hated. Said it was too messy. But I like the mess. I like digging things up. I like planting what I want and knowing exactly what's in the soil. And every now and then, when I kneel beside the hydrangeas, I hear the faint echo of Clarissa's voice from the podium. He took his secrets to the grave. And I smile. Because she was wrong. Not all of them. Have you ever discovered a betrayal so deep it changed how you saw your entire past? Let me know in the comments how you handled it, or what you wish you had done differently. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories where family drama meets hard-earned truth. Your story might be the one we tell next.